Hello and welcome back to my channel. We were having a tiny bit of a lipstick crisis and I solved it with the back of my thing because I didn't have anything to remove the lipstick that I was wearing and I didn't like the color. So I left a little lip prints on the back of my paper because that's how we roll when we're desperate and we don't feel like going and finding makeup remover. It looks better now. It's not like whatever. But yeah. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to discuss again and always the transformed wife. I had no plans on making a video about her anytime soon. I have a gazillion other videos that need to be made, but then she made this tweet, and given the month that this is, and I'll explain in a minute, this tweet immediately put her at the top of the list. So let's read the tweet, then discuss the tweet, and then get into why this managed to make it to the top of the list. Okay? Alright. Okay, so this is Lori the transformed wife. As a wife has a much greater chance of being abused if she is quarrelsome, cantankerous, and abusive towards her husband, rather than if she is kind, loving, submissive. God's ways are for our good, not for our harm. And then smiles, free ref, battery. I'm going to show you because their tweet was so awesome. I printed it out as well. Thank you. Or no, it's then you know nothing about abuse. An abused person can never do enough to please their abuser. That tweet is an awesome response. Yeah, that was Lori Alexander's tweet last night. You can go to my Twitter. I retweeted it with a congratulations to making it to the top of my list of being disgusting. Where to begin? As a person who grew up in a house that was full of domestic violence and abuse, I can tell you that the people in my life did absolutely nothing to get the crap that they got. There's something wrong with the abuser. The abuser has a temper problem, a self-control problem, and mental issues. Nothing you do or say is going to stop that abuser from coming at you. Nothing you try to calm the person down, you try to talk to the person, anything you do is only going to make it worse. And I speak from experience. Tomorrow is a really rough day for me. It marks the 7-year anniversary of the day that my dad died. For those of you who don't know, my dad was a very bad alcoholic, among other things. He was an abusive drunk. He abused everyone in our lives. I'm not going to tell you their stories because it's not my place, but I'm going to tell you a couple of mine. And we're just going to be honest about it because when I was a teenager, I felt very much alone and didn't know that I wasn't alone, that millions and millions of other people suffer from the same systematic, horrific abuse that I grew up in. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you is when I was about 3 or 4 years old, there was a dump being built somewhere nearby where my dad was living at the time. I don't remember much about it. I just remember thinking in my head that all the animals were going to be displaced. They were going to tear down forest and wildlife things, and I've always been weirdly environmental. And I was really upset about them displacing animals and the fact that the animals would no longer have homes, because that's all I really understood at the age of 4 or 3 or 4 or maybe even 5. I can't remember how old I was. I can just remember. This is just something I remember. And my dad took that as I'm soft and weak, and he would literally have to physically beat the niceness out of me. And he systematically spent the next 15, 16 years attempting to literally beat the niceness out of me. And he even admitted to it when I asked him why he was so cruel to me compared to how he was to my sisters, even though they got their own crap, and that's their own stories to tell. He was like, because you were weak and I have to beat the niceness out of you. And he used to refer to that story all the time. That was the moment he realized that if he didn't beat the niceness out of me, the world was going to eat me alive. I am proud to say that, he did not beat the niceness out of me. I am still very much a person that worries about the environment and the people around me, and I care, which is why this tweet struck a nerve so desperately bad. That man decided when I was a child that something I said or did was why I was going to get the living crap beaten out of me for the next 15 years. And it wasn't just physical abuse. There was physical abuse. There were times that he would punch me and he would hit me and he would leave marks and he would disguise that as games. Learn to defend yourself. He would punch me until I would hit him back. And if I didn't leave a mark on him, he would punch me. I mean, there were times I was covered in bruises from where my dad just decided it would be fun to beat the living crap out of his 10-year-old daughter. It had nothing to do with how nice or kind or submissive that I was. He also systematically tortured me. There was one night he went to pick me up from my mom. It was supposed to be his weekend, and he picked me up from my mom's job. I was in the car, which nowadays you don't do that, but back then it wasn't a big deal. I sat in the car and I waited for my dad to come pick me up. It was maybe like 30 or 40 minutes. And my dad showed up, pretended like he talked to the cops, and then told me that I was never going to see my mother again. That he had taken custody of me, and that my mom was going to be arrested, and that I was never going to see my mom again, and I should just suck it up, buttercup. I started to, as a kid, I started to scream and cry and wail, and he was like, I don't get what your problem is, blah, 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 blah. I'm in the car, and I am screaming, and I am upset, and I eventually get to the point where I tell him I hate him, and I never want to speak to him again. He didn't take that well. He did not take that well at all. And I got hit. And then when we got back to the house where my stepmom was, he told the stepmom she could hear me screaming and wailing about how much I hate him. And I, to this day, don't know what he told her because she told me she never knew what he had done, and I believe her. But I got in so much trouble for telling my dad I hated him when he had threatened to take me away from my mother and that I was never going to see her again. And that was not uncommon for my upbringing. There was another time, and this shows you how deeply it affects your mentality. I am 31 years old, and my dad's been dead for 7 years. He would sit there when I was a kid, when it was my mom's turn to pick me up, and if she was even like a minute late, he would convince me that he had murdered her and put her head in the oven. To the point where, even now, when people don't show up where they're supposed to show up on time, my brain is absolutely hardwired to immediately think that they're dead. My husband, if he works late, makes sure that he texts me, because if he's 10 to 15 minutes late, I'm thinking he's dead somewhere. Because my dad hardwired that into my head to believe that. And that if you're not there within that 10-minute range, you're immediately dead. Like, that was just my life. That was just my life. Nothing I said or did or could have done would have changed the way my father treated me. I was a really shy and quiet kid. I hid from my dad, and he would still hunt me down to systematically torture me. So I would be hiding in my room, and he would come in there and make me come out so that he could torture me. There were times when I was so afraid to speak, I would stare at a fish tank and imagine the little lives of the fish and what they were doing in their little fish tank. I wrote entire stories in my head for that fish tank. Give me a second, guys. To that fish tank, because that was the safest thing for me to do, because if I moved or breathed or brought any sort of attention to my existence, my dad was going to torture me. Once again, I was a child. I did nothing wrong. I was a very good and sweet child who tended to mind my own business. You can ask anyone who knew me back then. I was a really, really sweet kid. And that was the abuse I suffered at the hands of a man who, no matter what I did, no matter how nice and submissive I was going to torture me. I don't want to get into what he did to my stepmom and my mom, because that's their story to tell and it's not mine. But I will say that they are two of the nicest people on the entire planet. My mom, for those of you who don't know, lives with me. She's nice and meek and is about as submissive and conservative as you can get. And that did not stop the systematic abuse that she suffered. It did not stop the systematic abuse that my stepmom suffered. These were smart, beautiful, intelligent women that had a man systematically degrade, humiliate, and beat them. And nothing they did was wrong. What was wrong was with my dad. Nothing ever pleased him. Nothing ever made him happy. Nothing in the world would have stopped the abuse that we suffered. That was his mental issue, not ours. This is Lori trying to justify the abuser and rationalize the abuse, putting it on the victim. And that is not okay. That is so not okay. And for any of you who are coming here after seeing this tweet and you think that if you are physically, emotionally, or sexually abused by someone, I'm going to leave a hotline down below for you to get help, but it is never your fault. It is always the abuser's fault. It is never your fault. Never. And I honestly, and there are a lot of people saying this in the comments, that it sounds like Lori's trying to justify the abuse she is probably receiving in her own head. And that is heartbreaking, that if she's being hit and abused by someone, this is a rationalization she's trying to make. I mean, I genuinely hope, Lori, that you are not being abused, and if you are, that you seek help. You don't deserve this. Even with all the god-awful tweets that you've put and all of the horrible things that you have said on Twitter and YouTube, you definitely don't deserve this. You definitely don't deserve to be sitting there and thinking that someone hitting you or abusing you is your fault, because it's not. And okay, guys, I find this, it was extremely upsetting, but the only way I could vocalize how bad this tweet was to tell you about my life. I'm gonna go into more detail. My own therapy is talking to you guys, so I am going to go into the last days of my dad's life and alcoholism in another video that'll be posting in the next couple of days, because these days are ridiculously hard on me. But I will see you later.